Military necessity. The rule permitting measures required to accomplish a legitimate military objective. It is consistently misunderstood as a justification for whatever the mission demands. It is the opposite. It permits only what is necessary and only what is not already prohibited. Necessity can never authorize an act the law of armed conflict forbids, no matter how badly the mission needs it. It restricts what may be done. It does not create permission. Distinction. Attacks may be directed only at combatants and military objectives, never at civilians or civilian objects. It requires the attacker to actively differentiate between the two, rather than treating an area as uniformly hostile. Any attack that cannot be directed at a specific military objective is unlawful, regardless of the intent behind it. Distinction is the rule the others are built on, because none of them function if the target cannot be identified in the first place. Proportionality. An attack is prohibited if the civilian harm expected from it would be excessive in relation to the concrete military advantage anticipated. The judgment is made before the attack, using the information reasonably available at that moment. It is not assessed with hindsight. An attack that turns out badly was not automatically disproportionate, and an attack that happened to cause no harm was not automatically lawful. Precautions in attack. An obligation to take active steps before and during an attack, rather than simply refraining from unlawful ones. The target must be verified as a military objective. Weapons and timing must be selected to minimize civilian harm. Where circumstances permit, effective advance warning must be given, and the attack must be canceled or suspended if it becomes apparent that the target is not military or that the harm would be excessive. It applies after the decision to attack has already been made. Unnecessary suffering. Weapons and methods causing injury beyond what is required to disable a combatant are prohibited. The measure is the gap between the military effect achieved and the human cost of achieving it. This rule is the legal basis for banning expanding bullets, weapons designed to leave fragments undetectable by X-ray, and lasers intended to cause permanent blindness. It protects enemy combatants who are lawful targets. Being a legitimate target does not remove it. Perfidy. Killing, wounding, or capturing an adversary by inviting their belief that you are entitled to protection, then betraying that belief, feigning surrender, feigning wounds, and posing as a civilian or as protected medical personnel are all prohibited. Deception itself is lawful. Camouflage, decoys, false radio traffic, and misdirection are all permitted ruses of war. The line falls at whether the deception exploits the protections the law itself grants, because each use of that deception makes the protection less credible for everyone relying on it. Self-defense. The right of every commander and every individual to respond to an attack or an imminent attack. It is the one authority rules of engagement cannot remove. Restrictive rules may prohibit offensive operations entirely and still leave self-defense fully intact, because it is not granted by the rules and therefore cannot be withdrawn by them. It operates at three levels: the individual, the unit, and the nation. Hostile act. An attack or other use of force against friendly forces, protected persons, or protected property. It also covers force used to prevent or interfere with the accomplishment of a mission. A hostile act triggers the right of self-defense immediately, with no approval required from higher command. It is conduct-based. What matters is what the individual or force did, not who they are. Hostile intent. The threat of imminent force demonstrated through observable behavior rather than declared. It permits a response before an attack occurs. Imminent in this context does not mean immediate. It means the point beyond which effective self-defense would no longer be possible. That definition makes hostile intent the most contested rule in the framework, because applying it requires a judgment about what someone is about to do. Declared hostile force. A force formally designated as hostile by appropriate authority. Once that declaration is made, its members may be engaged based on status alone, with no requirement that they commit a hostile act or demonstrate hostile intent first, This is the most significant distinction in rules of engagement. Every other authority is conduct-based and reactive. This one is status-based, and it shifts the question from what someone is doing to what they are. Positive identification. The requirement that a target be identified with reasonable certainty as a lawful military objective before engagement. The threshold varies by theater and mission, and is frequently the most restrictive element of any set of rules. Where distinction is the legal principle, positive identification is the operational standard enforcing it. A target that cannot be positively identified cannot be engaged, regardless of how likely it appears to be legitimate. Escalation of force. A graduated sequence of measures required before lethal force, most often at checkpoints and in crowd control. The standard progression is to shout, then to show a weapon, then to use physical or non-lethal force, and only then to fire. Each step communicates intent and gives the other party an opportunity to comply. It exists because the majority of civilian casualties in recent conflicts occurred in ambiguous encounters rather than deliberate engagements. Collateral damage estimate. A calculation run before a planned strike, projecting how many civilians are expected to be killed or injured. The result determines who is permitted to approve the strike. Low estimates can be approved by a local commander. Higher estimates escalate the approval requirement up the chain. That threshold has a formal name, the non-combatant casualty cutoff value, and it is a specific number fixed in advance of the operation. Above it, no commander in the field may authorize the strike at all, and the decision moves to the most senior levels of government. It converts a moral question into a procedural one by assigning a number to it. No strike rule. Certain locations may not be attacked at all, and they are recorded on a list maintained and updated continuously throughout an operation. It covers hospitals, places of worship, schools, cultural property, diplomatic premises, and infrastructure whose destruction would cause disproportionate civilian harm, such as dams and power stations. Protection is conditional rather than absolute. A protected site used to launch attacks can lose that status, but only after warning, and only by decision at a level well above the unit taking fire. Hors de Combat. A lawful target stops being one the moment they are out of the fight. Anyone who has surrendered, been captured, or been rendered incapable of defending themselves by wounds or unconsciousness may not be attacked. Aircrew parachuting from a disabled aircraft are protected during their descent, though airborne troops jumping into an operation are not. Every other rule here determines who may be attacked. This one determines when that stops, and it takes effect immediately, regardless of what the person was doing a second earlier. Thanks for watching. Which rule do you think is hardest to follow under fire? Drop it in the comments. Also, please remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video.